mystery if we consider that on December 19th, 2018, a pyramid of more than 100 meters in length was presented above the Pentagon without generating any kind of response, not even an alarm. Despite the fact that the giant was maintained over the Pentagon, no one seemed to notice its presence, a case that has proven its authenticity. This happened on November 26th at approximately 8:30 in the morning, according to the media.
Cierran temporalmente la Casa Blanca y el Capitolio por alerta de seguridad. La Casa Blanca y el Capitolio tuvieron que cerrar este martes temporalmente tras la entrada de un avión en espacio restringido de Washington, aunque minutos después se levantó la alerta y se volvió a retomar la actividad habitual. Según los medios estadounidenses, la clausura de la sede del Ejecutivo y el Legislativo se debió a la imposibilidad de comunicarse con un avión que había violado el espacio de seguridad en Washington. El anuncio de la clausura del Capitolio por parte de la policía del Legislativo fue emitido a las 8:30 de la mañana hora local y fue levantado unos 35 minutos después. La violación del espacio aéreo restringido de la capital estadounidense llevó a un grupo de funcionarios de seguridad a convocar una reunión de urgencia para evaluar la situación, así como a desplegar varios aviones militares a la zona como parte del protocolo de actuación. El presidente estadounidense Donald Trump se encontraba en la Casa Blanca a la hora de la emergencia, donde tiene previsto participar en la tradicional acto de indultar al pavo con motivo de la fiesta de Acción de Gracias, que se celebra este jueves en Estados Unidos.
Later, an attempt would be made to explain why extreme security measures had been taken, although these explanations were very unconvincing.
Esta no es la primera vez que las autoridades han planteado proteger la Casa Blanca y el Capitolio a raíz de los ataques del 11 de septiembre. Un funcionario del Pentágono me dice que justo antes de las 8:30 de esta mañana, NORAD notó un punto luminoso o lo que llamó una pista de interés en una pantalla de radar. El funcionario no tenía ningún detalle sobre el vector de la pista, de dónde venía o hacia dónde se dirigía. Al menos un helicóptero de la Guardia Costera se apresuró a la ubicación para investigar, pero el funcionario dice que el helicóptero no pudo encontrar nada. La causa de la anomalía aún no está clara, pero fuera de lo que se dice fue una gran precaución. La policía del Capitolio restringió el acceso al Capitolio. En la Casa Blanca, el servicio secreto cerró las puertas, dejando a los periodistas mirando por las ventanas, tratando de descubrir qué estaba pasando. La mayoría de la gente creía que el encierro podía tratarse de una huelga.
Official reports indicate that a flock of birds, a weather balloon, or something other than a plane or helicopter appears to have triggered the alert, sending fighter jets and helicopters to patrol the area and locate or even shoot down the perpetrator. Some of the first reports of a possible air threat came just before 8:30 a.m. local time in Washington, with the United States Capitol Police and its Secret Service later restricting access to various sites and telling people in the White House and the Capitol building to take refuge instead. "45 minutes later, Capitol Police said the situation had passed without incident and the closings ended soon after. Before the blockades ended, the United States and Canada Aerospace Defense Command in North America, responsible for coordinating the defense of airspace in both countries, including Washington, D.C., tweeted that we have commissioned the aircraft to respond. Details later. NORAD planes are on site and responding. The plane is not considered hostile at this time, the command said in a second tweet, which he later removed. Pentagon spokesman Lieutenant Colonel Chris Mitchell told CNN pretty much the same thing, that it was a plane that was not considered hostile. Neither the Pentagon, the United States Northern Command, nor NORAD issued an official press release about the incident. NORAD responded to an event in the Special Flight Rules area surrounding Washington, D.C. this morning. NORAD directed a helicopter to investigate, and the event was resolved without incident. The active of the U.S. Coast Guard helicopter USA Dolphin MH-65 was displaced to the area. This helicopter also sometimes operates from a separate site at Reagan National Airport. The MH-65, among its missions in the area, is on call specifically to intercept low and slow-moving targets. Fox Television also reported that unspecified fighter jets and a Capitol Police helicopter responded to the incident. The fighter jets in question were almost certainly the Viper F-16C of the National Guard, which were also sent to defend the area. Ground-based air defense systems that also helped protect the Capitol were also undoubtedly on alert during the incident. As for the actual target these assets were looking for in the sky, at no time during the incident did any U.S. government agency identify the threat beyond claims that it was an airplane, which NORAD, at least by now, has terminated. Sam Sweeney, a journalist for DC Morning and ABC 7 Television in Washington, later tweeted, citing unidentified sources, that a flock of birds appearing on radar had been the real culprit. The comments you are hearing about a flock of birds are speculation. Another unidentified NORAD public affairs officer said, adding after those initial reports, that they could neither confirm nor deny that it was a flock of birds. Using the MH-65 to intercept whatever appeared on the radar screens indicates that the target, real or not, was seen as slow, very slow. This is backed by another CNN report, citing an unidentified source from the United States Capitol Police who described the radar track as a slow drop. Another unidentified U.S. government official said the Federal Aviation Administration claimed that air traffic controllers also did not see the alleged runway on their radar screens. However, another unidentified source told this outlet that it could have been a weather anomaly. While exactly what happened and why, the incident and these sometimes conflicting reports remain unclear, highlighting the difficulties facing the U.S. government to protect the nation's capital from air threats, especially smaller drones. This had already become remarkably evident after Doug Hughes, a former postal worker turned political activist, flew a gyro in D.C. restricted airspace and landed on the Capitol lawn in 2015. He was hoping to deliver letters to each member of Congress, protesting what he said was widespread corruption and dysfunction. Hughes later pleaded guilty to a felony and spent 120 days in prison.
If that was Jake, we would have been made a prisoner of the damn state.
Followed by a year of probation. Subsequently, the United States government
We would have been made a damn terrorist.
made improvements to the air defense network in and around Washington, D.C., an area collectively referred to as the National Capital
Would have made an example out of us.
Region. This included adding more suitable systems to detect and track targets with smaller radar cross-sections, such as ultralight aircraft and drones. Depending on the exact circumstances, a flock of birds, for example, might look the same to radars as a swarm of drones. Nor would it be the first time that radars have confused large birds with possible threats. In a particularly notable case in the 1950s, a formation of Canadian geese triggered an alert from personnel working on the NORAD Distant Early Warning Line, DEW radar network, which initially mistaking them for a mass of Soviet bombers. When it comes to the air defense network around Washington, D.C., even if it detects a real threat, how to respond remains complicated. Firing ground-to-air or air-to-air missiles at a target over a densely populated area, especially on a low-flying target, poses inherent risks of causing collateral damage. The use of automatic cannons or machine guns from airplanes or ground locations still presents dangers for innocent bystanders. It is evident that the maximum security measures were taken in Washington without so far being able to determine what happened. The helicopters that came to the area seconds after the alert was declared found nothing. There was nothing in the skies over Washington. However, there is another possibility.
He maketh the clouds his chariots.
On Saturday, July 19th, 1952, at 11:40 p.m., Edward Nugent, an air traffic controller at Washington National Airport, today Ronald Reagan National Airport, saw 7 objects on his radar. These were 24 kilometers south-southwest of the city. There were no known aircraft in the area, and the objects were not following established flight paths. Nugent's superior, Harry Barnes, a high-level airport air traffic controller, saw the objects on Nugent's radar screen. He later wrote, "We knew immediately that a very strange situation existed. Their movements were completely radical compared to those of ordinary aircrafts." Barnes sent 2 more controllers to check Nugent's radar. They reported that it was operating normally. Barnes then called another airport radar center. The controller there, Howard Coughlin, told Barnes that he also had the objects on his radar screen. In addition, Coughlin stated that looking out the window of the control tower, he could see one of the objects, and more specifically, a bright orange light. "I can tell what's behind it." At this point in the night, other objects appeared in all sectors of the radar screen. When they moved over the White House in the United States Capitol, Barnes called Andrews Air Force Base, located 10 miles from the National Airport. Although Andrews reported that they had no unusual objects on their radar, an aviator soon called the base's control tower to report the sighting of a foreign object. Airman William Brady, who was in the tower, saw an object that appeared to be like an orange ball of fire, dragging a tail or trail. When Brady attempted to alert the other staff members in the tower, the strange object took off with incredible speed, he stated. Meanwhile, another person at the control tower of the National Airport reported seeing an orange disc nearby at about 900 meters high. On one of the airport runways, S.C. Pierman, a Capital Airlines pilot, was waiting for permission to take off in the cabin of his DC-4. After spotting what he believes to be a meteorite, he was told that unknown objects near his position had been detected on the control tower's radar. For their part at Andrews Air Force Base, control tower personnel were tracking on radar what they believed to be unknown objects. But others suspected, and in one case were able to demonstrate that they were simply stars and meteors. However, Sergeant Charles Davenport observed an orange-red light to the south. The light appears to have stopped, and then it has made a sharp change in direction and altitude. This happened multiple times. At one point, the 2 radar centers at National Airport and the one at Andrews Air Force Base were tracking an object floating on a radio beacon. The object disappeared at all 3 radar centers at the same time. At 3 in the morning, shortly before 2 Newcastle Base Air Force One F-94 Starfire fighters in Delaware arrived in Washington, all the objects disappeared from the radar of the National Airport. However, when the planes had to refuel, the objects returned, which convinced the Barnes that the UFOs were monitoring air traffic, behaving accordingly. The objects were last detected on radar at 5:30 near dawn. E.W. Chambers, a civilian radio engineer from the Washington suburbs, observed 5 huge discs spinning in a loose formation. They were leaning up and to the left in a steep climb. A few days later, Major General John Sanford, Director of Intelligence for the Air Force, gave a press conference to try to explain the extraordinary phenomenon that had caused great expectation in Washington and throughout the United States.
And analyze to the best of our ability anything in the air that may have the possibility of threat or menace to the United States. In pursuit of this obligation, since 1947, we have received and analyzed between 1,000 and 2,000 reports that have come to us from all kinds of sources. Of this great mass of reports, we have been able adequately to explain the great bulk of them, explain them to our own satisfaction. We've been able to explain them as hoaxes, as erroneously identified friendly aircraft, as meteorological or electronic phenomena, or as light aberrations. However, there have been a certain percentage of this volume of reports that have been made by credible observers of relatively incredible things. It is this group of observations that we now are attempting to resolve. Our basic difficulty in dealing with these is that there is no measurement of them that makes it possible for us to put them in any pattern that would be profitable for a deliberate, custom sort of analysis to take the next step.
Call halal Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai Bahashem Rakakwadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders, a great millstone, that of whom I learned this truth from. You can already see which direction that this lesson is going toward. It's about the chariots, about the angels coming out of the heavens, revealing themselves in that they have been, and that Esau has been hiding it for unspeakable amounts of time, and as well as many other things that Esau is hiding from the general public. And it's no surprise to any one of us. So without further ado, I want to get into Revelations chapter 14, verse 17. And another angel came out of the temple, which is in heaven, he also having a sharp sickle. Verse 18. And another angel came out